普通に流れてく日常に無理して馴染ませた沈んじまった個性たちを噛んで飲んで吐いて笑うこんな僕を分かってほしい言いたいけど言えなくてなんて誰も分かってくんないのと思うのは贅沢なのかななのかな感情的な太陽は熱を上げすぎてどうにかな
Hello everybody and welcome back to Manga of the Week. I'm your man with a semblance of a plan but never quite when it matters, Papadopoulos. And this week we are finally talking about one of, if not my favorite manga right now. Yes, that's right, we are finally talking about Oshi no Ko. Oshi no Ko comes out of the gate swinging, and I'm not even really talking about the plot or anything like that yet. It is helmed by one Aka Akasaka, who you may just recognize from a little niche title called Kaguya-sama Love is War. Not only that, he is joined by the artistic talents of one Mingo Yokoyari, who is known for her work on her own manga Scum's Wish, as well as many others, such as Kimi wa Midara na Boku no Juo. I've read it, I still don't know how to pronounce it. Anyway, this powerhouse duo immediately stacked the odds of this story's success in its favor. However, we all know that just having popular names attached to something doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be successful, much less good. But thankfully, Oshi no Ko is an exceptionally solid manga. To summarize and try to not really spoil anything, a exceptionally popular idol shows up at a small town hospital very pregnant. Her gynecologist is a longtime fan of hers, and he understands the gravitas of the situation, there being an idol in his hospital pregnant who is not supposed to even be dating anybody, much less get pregnant, as that is a humongous no-no in the idol industry. However, the situation surrounding her quickly turns deadly, but through a strange twist of fate, he may just end up closer to his idol than he ever thought possible. I think I did a pretty good job there. Without further ado, and without getting into more spoiler territory because I want to keep this spoiler-free, let's go ahead and get into the scale. Story, I'm giving a 9.5 out of 10. I don't think that there is any such thing as a flawless story. There will always be something that I or others just don't agree with or feel like it's too contrived. However, I am willing to say for this story that it is as close to flawless as you can possibly get. Now, I will say here, the marriage of the story, characters, and art are what elevates the scores that I'm about to tell you about to its height. If any one of those three elements was lacking or didn't work harmoniously with the other two, this story, well, this manga as a whole, just wouldn't be as good. It's not just one of them that carries the rest, it's the three of them together which make this manga so mesmerizing. The story itself I can't really speak too much on without spoiling it. However, this seemingly standard look into idol and media culture in Japan takes a really grim twist and looks much more at the underbelly of the media and the idol culture in Japan that a lot of people are afraid to even talk about in real life. And it makes this a much more exciting read than one may expect at first glance. Characters, I'm giving an 8.5 out of 10. Oh, I thought you said this was your favorite manga. Yeah, it is. That doesn't mean that it has the best characters ever written or contrived, though. They're still freaking fantastic, don't get me wrong, but the characters still have their issues. The main two characters, for instance, have an inextricable bond, but for all of that bond, they hide their deepest secrets away from each other, and choose to go about their goals, which are the same, in wildly different ways. Of course, this whole thing goes back to what I said before about the story, characters, and art working together to make this a masterpiece. If this manga had this seemingly illogical discrepancy with its characters, and then a terrible story to go along with it, the whole thing crumbles. Yet the arcs and twists and contrary methods that the two main characters use end up instead creating this sort of enrapturing dance, where they come together and then violently push apart, walk together tangentially, and then clasp together to create this decisive finishing pose. It really is, in every sense, a routine. Not to mention the two also are surrounded by equally deep supporting casts that are also executing their own plans in this shady, cutthroat show business world. And thusly, the dance that the two are engaged in becomes ever more complex. I'm gonna stop painting this weird dance floor illustration before I lose people, but it's really built up well. Art, I'm giving a 10 out of 10. I don't give that lightly, but truly, Yokoyari Sensei has one of the most distinct art styles in all of manga, in my opinion. I can always pick out one of her works. Her unique approach to faces, especially eyes, is truly one of a kind. Her prior works have set her apart not only as a superb artist, but also as an incredible storyteller in her own right. Especially when it comes to romantic relationships, she seems to have a fantastic grasp of what lies in the twisted depths of the hearts of those involved in the relationship, and the way that those twisted depths end up subverting the other person or undermining them. All of these qualities I mentioned tend to come out in her artwork, where in every chapter of Oshi no Ko, we get to witness a prime example of the saying, "The eyes are the window to the soul." I find that it's incredibly difficult for an artist to pull off showing outward and inward emotions in the same drawing. But in this manga, Yokoyari Sensei pulls it off near flawlessly. In addition to that, you add the breadth of side characters and character designs in general, and the crazy good backgrounds and the on-location shoots and all of the research that goes into the art and everything else, and it just kind of leaves you with this burning question of, do these two and their assistants ever get any sleep? Locations, I'm giving an 8 out of 10. From podunk towns to moving experimental production stages, this manga stretches across quite the menagerie of locales and does so without missing any sort of beat. Meticulous care has gone into the research and reference image for each major location featured throughout this manga. It always adds to the suspension of disbelief, I think, when recognizable things from real locations around the world are featured in a manga that is grounded in reality. It's important that they have these real locations to continue to ground them in the story, in reality, and for us to believe that this story might have actually even happened, and they do that very well. Emotional impact, I'm giving a 7.5 out of 10. I reserve the right to change this score later, but seeing as how the manga isn't done, I'm speaking only for the emotional beats that have occurred thus far. What I can say is that at the beginning of the manga, it will absolutely take your breath away. With the breadth of topics and its establishing moments, they tug every which way at your heartstrings. But I would say the most common emotion that you feel throughout this manga is this deep sense of unease. There is always something lurking beneath the surface of this manga, and because the entire manga is founded on lies, you can never really trust anything or anyone you see in this manga, even the protagonist. It's a very mesmerizing way of writing, and pretty daring too, I might add, as I feel that founding an entire story on the principle of lying and lies being worth more than the truth in a lot of cases to these characters, it could make somebody reading it uneasy in the sense of they can't understand anything or nothing is ever real, and so why even bother? But somehow they managed to pull it off, and I really wish I could articulate why it works, but I can't, and so I'm just gonna have to leave it there. Finally, of course, I know with this I've established the Ludo meter. I give this maybe a 3 or 4 on that. It's very rarely lewd, and the stuff that is lewd is really tame and isn't really plot relevant, so I'm not going to dwell on this any more than the numbers. In conclusion, this manga has been at the top of my list for years now, ever since it came out, really, almost. And I give it a much deserved 9.5 out of 10 overall score. And I really hope that I have convinced you to maybe try it as well. It currently has an airing anime adaptation that is absolutely stunning to watch. And I have a video concerning that in the works as well. The premiere alone is an hour and a half, so it's a time investment, much like reading the manga as a time investment, but it is so worth it to consume one or even both of what this manga has to offer, manga or anime. It's a story that I think is really important and needs to be addressed, and not a lot of people are willing to do it. And I don't mean that just the story itself with the two protagonists and what they go through. I mean the bigger picture of it, where it dares to look at this grimy, not pleasant underside to show business and idol culture in Japan, which for a long time has stood undefiled. And what I mean by that is these are industries, I think, across the world that have a lot of secrets and lies and unpleasant stuff hiding underneath that people are really afraid to go into. And I kind of laud Yokoyari sensei and Akasaka sensei for being willing to plumb that depths. Between their own obvious experiences in show business and being popular manga artists and having anime adaptations already of their work, and then the clear research that they do with different people to get these perspectives that they portray in their manga, it's very impressive that they're willing to do this. And I don't mean that in like, you know, somebody's gonna come and off them for daring to sully the names of etc., but it's stuff that needs to be talked about. So for that reason, I think that this is a very real manga, even despite all of its, you know, storytelling and all of that, that is very important. And so I hope that I have encouraged you to give either it or the anime a chance, and I really appreciate y'all for watching. I'm Papadopoulos, and I'll see y'all next time.